I feel like I'm the unluckiest person in this room to follow such wonderful talent. Could we just give another round of applause to those brilliant young people? I agree with the program director that we don't always listen to our children. We have such talent in our country. And you present here this evening represent for me that talent that is South Africa. It's always such an amazing pleasure to be part of this family of science and technology, because there can be nothing better than you being average and working with really clever people. So I'm extremely privileged to work with all of you. Allow me to begin by saying that I associate myself fully with the list of distinguished guests that has been read more than once this evening. And if you have forgotten that list, please consult the executive director. She's ready to provide it to you. So all the honorable and distinguished guests, good evening, excellencies, ambassadors and high commissioners, the executive director of NSTF, Professor Danse, the DG, and everybody else. I agree with the absolute protocol list, and I shall not repeat it. It's indeed a great pleasure for me to have the opportunity to be with you all this evening. Now, I just wondered as I thought about today as to how many of you, being in 2016, recall that in 1995, we as democratic South Africa began the process of developing a new policy for science and technology, and that many of you in this room participated in that process. And in 1996, you produced a white paper that we adopted as the White Paper of Science and Technology, a policy brief of our sector. Well, we've been relooking at that 1996 white paper, and of course we were extremely astounded to realize that it is 20 years since the 1996 white paper, and that we have set about achieving our innovation strategy, and we have done, I think, rather well as a country and you as researchers and scientists in South Africa. So having reached 20 years, we thought it absolutely opportune that we should set about thinking about the next 20 years. So we've begun a process which will involve all of you, through which we hope to craft the next 20-year strategy. And we hope with your support that we'll be able to produce White Paper 2017. We've already begun on this path and have had a review done by the National Advisory Council for Innovation and a team of experts. We're considering that review and are using it to begin to think about the future. In looking at the review and where we have come thus far, we've decided that there are a number of key goals that should form part of the strategy that we will incorporate in the new white paper and future policy. And I want to just speak to some of what we're thinking this evening. You will recall that the white paper led us to adopt a national systems approach to innovation. Today, as South Africa, the national systems approach is widely adopted by us and used as our mantra for what we seek to achieve as a national system of innovation. This systems approach is one that many countries and international organizations also follow. We've been very, very fortunate as South Africa that the innovation framework we adopted has led us to a number of very positive results. Our policy was multidimensional, and the results are apparent in a number of government policy and firm-level programs that are underway in our country, including our recently adopted industrial policy as well as our various private sector business strategies. You'll recall that back in 1996, we had a high growth rate, and we anticipated that we'll have an even higher one. Now, of course, we've had to temper somewhat our ambitions and work in a low growth environment. This has had somewhat of an impact on our business research and development ambitions, as well as on business confidence, and a real impact on young people who are struggling to find jobs and even struggling to find scholarship support for their studies. And I would like to say to the young, brilliant students that Ms. Yancy referred to as not having bursaries, from our own modest funding, we're going to try and see how we, as science and technology, can assist. And of course, along with our private sector partners. Well, as things have developed, we've now adopted the National Development Plan, which fortunately for us in the NSI subscribes to the vision of a national innovation system. The NDP calls for cooperation between the various component institutions within the innovation system and urges them to support innovation and to ensure that it infuses each sector of endeavor in our country. The important, I think, future that we have and the opportunity that we've got is to look at how we can expand the achievements that have been secured by us in the past 20 years to ensure that indeed we build on the conceptual framework that we had outlined as the NSI in 1996. One of the aspects that features very prominently in the National Development Plan as a core organizing idea is the notion of sustainable development. We believe that now that we've got the Sustainable Development Goals, we have very strong support for moving with the sustainable development ambitions set out in the National Development Plan. So we are absolutely thrilled that we will be able to pursue what the NDP calls radical economic transformation on the basis of a sustainable path of growth. The NDP calls for a strong and effective state which is able to intervene on behalf of the poor and marginalized in order to correct the historic imbalances of power and the accumulation of wealth by a few. It proposes a very strong dialogue which we support between business, labor, and government as a means to ensuring investment, employment, and growth. Nowhere do we find the need for this compact more apparent than in agriculture. It is one of the sectors that we have given great attention to in the strategies that we have implemented, including our focus on advanced materials, on natural gas, on service exports, as well as on infrastructure, among other strategies. What we are asked to look at is whether it is possible, as the McKinsey report of 2015 noted, that we use agriculture as a major, as a major spur toward a new growth path out of the low growth scenario we have at present. With consumption rising in markets throughout sub-Saharan Africa and Asia, we believe that South Africa could triple its agricultural exports by 2030 as the McKinsey report suggests. This could become a key driver of rural growth and development, benefiting the nearly 1 in 10 South Africans who depend on subsistence or smallholder farming. Capturing this potential, the McKinsey report says, will require a bold national agricultural plan to ramp up production, productivity, and agro-processing. And of course, this agricultural production, I should not forget to say, includes a focus on pulses. We have to mention pulses tonight. As the Department of Science and Technology, we're playing a key role in stimulating agro-processing, sustainable agriculture, and food security. We established a Center of Excellence in Food Security. It's the largest of our centers of excellence in terms of the number, of participating institutions and the size of grants received out of the 15 centers of excellence that we have created. We've also established a number of research chairs in areas related to food security. These include research chairs in post-harvest technology, meat science genomics, in nutrinomics, disease resistance in field crops, sustainable agricultural systems, rural agronomy and development, land and agrarian reform, and wine sciences. The SARKI Food Security research chairs have recently received a massive boost in the form of an additional 3 South African United Kingdom bilateral research chairs, co-funded through the South Africa-UK Newton Fund. It doesn't involve the EU at all. In creating synergies among research chairs, our centers of excellence, and other established researchers in the system, we have established communities of practice that facilitate collaborative research, sharing of best practice, and provide a platform for influencing policy in these various agricultural research areas. We, of course, have our bioeconomy strategy that we launched in 2014. It focuses us on the development of biotechnology in 3 key sectors: agriculture, health, as well as industry, and prioritizes specific fields that should be developed in each of these. One of our greatest assets as South Africa is the combination of our rich biological diversity and our wealth of indigenous knowledge. Our country is the world's 3rd most biologically diverse country and is home to almost 10% of the world's known plant species and 15% of all known coastal marine species. This capital can be used to our country's advantage in the current economic crisis that we're confronting through multidisciplinary approaches, including providing new materials for the natural product sector, through bioprospecting with the aim of developing pharmaceutical, cosmeceutical, and industrial applications, and using indigenous plants and animals as food sources. We believe that we have a scientific competitive advantage in the sphere of indigenous knowledge systems. About 24,000 plant species exist in the country, of which 4,000 are used to manufacture medicines. About 20,000 tons of medicinal plants are exported from South Africa each year. Current initiatives for harvesting indigenous knowledge promise major benefits for economic development, for the development of medicines, and the development of increased exports of value-added indigenous products from South Africa. I should mention our initiatives with the deciduous fruit industry as a leading example of what we can do. This sector stands out as a best case of industry, government, academia, and science councils collaboration to enhance the competitiveness of our fruit exports. The Post-Harvest Innovation Program was first launched in 2007, and we renewed it in 2011. It has funded 54 research projects in the fresh fruit sector to address post-harvest issues such as product control during transit, packaging, non-invasive fruit quality assessment, and post-harvest disease control. All of this being done by researchers and scientists in our country. I believe, on the basis of the scientific excellence on display here this evening, that South Africa is indeed Africa's leading science and technology country. We have shown the world that we can overcome the most difficult challenges and build an inclusive democracy. We have shown the world that we have the capacity to compete with the best in the world in emerging scientific fields and new technologies. We have built and are building global infrastructure for global science. We are improving policy to enable investment by the private sector. And I'm not saying this just because I love South Africa or I love you, the research talent of South Africa. The UNESCO report on science, research, and innovation confirms my view. Tonight, therefore, we celebrate. I heartily congratulate all the awardees, and I thank in particular South32 for their sterling support. We celebrate fully alert that we need to work closely with the NSTF to see how we can use these wonderful awards to better motivate South Africa's research communities. I believe for the young people, the brilliance that we celebrate as well today, that the awardees that they will see tonight are their example. They're our example. So what we hope the brilliance will do is to set in their mind the ambition of following the example of the researchers that we will honor and celebrate tonight. I think, as our young people have said, that we are a wonderful country and a wonderful people, and that for us to become a global leader, which we certainly can in science and technology, all we need to do is believe that it is possible. Thank you very much.